Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Media Arts Center San Diego showcase for our color correction intensive. So this week we've been doing an intensive workshop on color correction video. It's been really exciting because we've had two amazing instructors. We've had Tom Antle from the San Diego School of the Creative and Performing Arts, and Brent Altamar, who has his own post-production company and does color correction as a professional. He's incredible and has so much experience that he's shared with our students today. So I'm going to bring these wonderful gentlemen onto the stage here with me. So welcome, Tom, and welcome, Brent.
Hey, Natalia, good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you guys, and welcome to the stream. So good to have you guys. Yeah. So I'd love to hand it off to you guys so you can tell us a little bit about what we did in the class and what are the kinds of things that were explored around color and emotion and how to bring that out through film.
Yeah. So, I started out the week on Monday laying some foundations which rooted in color theory and what color means in film. And that was really exciting because subconsciously we recognize how much we don't recognize actually how much color means and how much can be communicated just by the colors that happen to be on screen, the colors of an object in a shot, or worn by a character. So we kind of started our week there and then started to look at some of the tools that are available to our students in the software that they're using right now and some of the softwares of nonlinear editing platforms that are common. But then we wanted to go a little bit deeper, and we brought Brent Altamar in, who is he's been in post-production and film production for years here in San Diego, and really the transition to focus on color correction and become a colorist, and has had some really intensive color training. So Brent, would you like to share a little bit about your background and what we brought to the kids this week?
Sure, absolutely, Tom. So yeah, my background is in production. I've been in film for 20 plus years, and the last 3 or 4 years I've really focused on doing exclusively post-production, editorial, and so collection and copywriting, and really what I found loved. So when I had an opportunity to come and share some of that with students, I was thrilled. What I was able to contribute to the class, and I got the fun stuff. I got them in and actually start to do real world color grade kids and correction and show them the tools that I use and actually get in and push along and talk through with them on what happens out in the real world and how to take some theory that Tom introduced them to action and apply it.
All right. So, okay, there. Couldn't tell if you were done, Brent. We got a little bit of a choppy issue.
Oh no.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. But once we explored what we were doing in the current software, Brent went in much deeper into what's possible with the industry standard software, including DaVinci Resolve. We talked about color process, the difference between color correction and color grading. And just like all of our workshops that we do with the Media Arts Center, it's about getting your hands dirty. So between Monday and Wednesday, the students had an assignment. They were to take either an original piece of footage they had curated themselves with their own cameras, their camera phone, whatever they had available, or grab a clip that was supplied to them. On Monday, we actually supplied the students with a set of clips, so they were all working with a common set of variables. And I think we have an example, Natalia, of one of the clips. Is that fair to bring that up now from Brody's? Or am I jumping ahead?
Well, you are jumping a little bit ahead,
Mhm.
but I mean, we could start with Brody, but I was thinking maybe we could bring Griffin
Sure.
on and start with talking to him and asking him some questions about what his process was after we see his clip. But what I did want to say for our listeners and anybody who's watching up there on Facebook and on YouTube, that you can type in comments and questions, and we'll see them and we'll respond to them. We'd really love to have your input, your participation, your engagement as we go through this broadcast. So let's bring in Griffin. Here we go. Hey, Griffin.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm good.
Good to have you back. So great. You've been super engaged and you've had a busy summer, actually.
Yeah, pretty busy.
That's awesome. So let's actually, before we get into conversation about what you did, why don't we start with watching the clip that you modified? So we want to see the one that you did a color correction on. So let's watch that first.
Great.
Here we go.
These clips don't have sound, and that's totally fine. We're entirely focused on the color and the visual here.
Exactly. Great. So do you want to talk about what you did, or do you want us to see the clip, the before clip first?
Maybe let's look at the before clip.
All right, so let's do that. So the exact same video, but without the color correction.
Yes.
So again, no sound, but that's okay.
And Griffin, they can hear us while we're looking at this. Is this right off the camera, or was anything done to this?
This is right off the camera.
Okay. It's really a fascinating scene and well told from a composition standpoint.
Thank you.
I always really liked it with those 3 shots. Yeah, where did you get the idea for the feel for it? How did you come up with that?
Well, these are just substitute clips from something else I'm working on, but the color correction is inspired by the film that I'm working on with TPP. And the script for that, so I looked at the script for that, and the majority of that piece has a very somber, kind of sad tone. So I wanted to bring that out in the look of it. So I desaturated the footage, just brought down the color, brought in more contrast, took some red out of the image, added in a little more blue, just to remove color and to make it a little crisper.
And Griffin, what inspired the look? I know you said it's based on another film you're working on, but where typically when you're making color decisions to represent a scene, where did you get where from?
Sorry, that was a little bit choppy. I couldn't quite hear what you said.
Oop. Oh, I'm sorry. Where do you typically get inspiration to bring the feel of a scene to life?
Well, I think you can get inspiration from a lot of places. Like I'll think about similar, films with similar tones and what they did in terms of color. So I kind of associate, with this particular one, I associated higher saturation, more colorful as being happier, and desaturating it to almost the point of no color as sort of removing joy from the footage almost.
That's awesome. I think that definitely came through in those clips. And what feel were you trying to communicate by changing that color?
I was trying to make it. Thank you very much. I was trying to make it much more somber, less almost. I was trying to make it look a little more bland by removing the color, a little bit less exciting looking. The characters just stuck in this colorless world.
Yeah.
And Griffin, I've got a question for you. If I know you said these shots are not from the film that you're working on, but you're taking inspiration from the film you're working on. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the plot of the film? What is the story of the film that you're working on?
The story of the film that I'm working on, basically, it's about someone overcoming regret about something they did. They feel guilty about mistakes that they made in their past, and they're trying to come to terms with that. So they spend most of their time sort of stewing in their own regret, being kind of unhappy.
Regret stew.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Griffin, is there anything else you'd like to add about your experience this week?
It's been great. Yeah.
Outstanding. Natalia?
Well, actually, I have a question. I want to know how your filmmaking has changed as a result of going through this color correction workshop.
I think the biggest change is just like an increased level of technical knowledge in terms of various things in color correction, like software, like color curves, color wheels, sort of kind of how to use that, and in Premiere specifically, and in DaVinci Resolve. That's probably been the biggest impact of this, and a little bit of color theory too.
Nice. Yeah, that's excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this live showcase and for showing us the work that you did, talking about what you learned, and I can't wait to see how your film turns out. Teen Producers Project. And also for our audience, we're going to have that Q&A live, just like this is live on August 22nd at noon, which is going to be Saturday. And so that's going to be another opportunity to talk with filmmakers, but then we'll see Griffin's actual film completed. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Griffin. So I'm going to send you back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just hang out. All right. So up next, we're going to have our newest filmmaker joining. His name is Cesar, but he goes by Zay. And welcome, Zay.
Oh, thank you so much, Natalia. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Super exciting. So, is there anything you want to tell us about your film before we show it?
Well, I'm going to say that with these films and with all films that I really work on, I really like genre. So, and I like to genre bend and test and, see what I can do. And I think this color correction class was just another opportunity for me to do that in terms of what colors are specifically associated with certain genres. So I wanted to create this little short piece because I like to do little visual notes here and there. Interesting. So I wanted to do this short piece in a sort of almost like a very square, low-res TV movie. I wanted to almost make it very bad looking. But I wanted to also try and play around with more vibrant, exciting colors and exaggerate them in such a way that they would seem ominous. So I think that was really kind of what I was trying to do with this, and I think you'll see it.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So let's check this out. So give me a second, guys. I'm gonna share my screen. And let's watch Zay's film.
Zay, can you tell us a little bit about what you did here with, it's pretty high contrast in terms of the, we've got the lights from the cars or the trucks, and then a lot of black, which is fine, sometimes it's less is more. what was your approach? And I'll mention for the audience, there is no sound in this except for the last, I think, 10, 15 seconds.
So what I did was, when I was shooting it, I was just kind of shooting it along the road, and I thought it would be interesting to do a very contrasty short film. So I wanted to do stretches with very little color, and then pop in stretches with lots of very vibrant colors like this, as we're seeing right now. But what I would do was I would go in when I was editing the color. And so if you see on the dashboard right here, I really tried to pick up that red and exaggerate it, just small bits. But then, like, if you look into the headlights of these cars, I would exaggerate them, and pretty much, like, I would oversaturate them. And especially on these trucks, I really tried to do that with their headlights and their tail lights within the fog, because I really wanted to give it a quite eerie feel with very vibrant colors, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun you can have with this type of composition. It's simple. If you ever get a chance to revisit, if you ever get another dark night with a camera in a car, I mean, just a few shots of a passenger's face and the expression on their face can tell the audience so much about what is happening or could be happening. It's neat, and really it's pretty steady. That's the one thing I noticed. A lot of car footage is very shaky, but I'm looking at the dashboard and you've got that locked down pretty good.
And Zay, I have a question for you. This is Brent. You talked about bending genres and mixing genres. So can you talk a little bit about a little more about what genres you are bending and working with and thinking about with this?
Of course. So I was really trying to think of, I always think of films that inspire me and how I can almost retell them in my own way through a new lens. Forgive my pun. So I was almost thinking with this, like an anti-hero, like Scorsese's Taxi Driver. So I was really trying to mimic that within this, but I was also thinking there are a lot of yellows in it, as you can see. I tried to pick up on that, but also I was trying to go for a very science fiction feel with the red on the dashboard and almost the mechanics of the truck, right? You see it's almost like a metropolis with the whirring and the gears and the smoke. But with that, I wanted to try and have almost like a horror feel, because that's kind of my signature genre within the bending. I wanted to have it be uncertain. So I wanted to have it be very much like, so you would see these colors, but I wanted these colors to be more ominous, like a thriller or a horror.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not easy to capture that stuff, but it seems like you did some very purposeful accenting of color on the dashboard lights, the yellows, and the road signs. There's some great footage that you could lean on, potentially in a upcoming project, or maybe it's already tied to a project. I'm not sure, but yeah, very cool stuff. What else? Can you tell us what were your expectations when you arrived on Monday, Zay, and how did your week go?
Well, when I came in on Monday, I just have to say, first of all, I'm very bad at color correction. In general, post-production is I have a love-hate relationship with it, as I think most people do. But color correction especially kind of tears me down because, first of all, I just don't really know how to use the tools. and I think I could do a lot with them if I knew how to use them. So I was coming into this, and I was really expecting to have absolutely no idea what you guys were talking about, and then slowly attempt to build up a general sense, which I could then take into Mr. Antle's classroom and get a more in-depth sense of. So I think those were my expectations, and I think y'all went above and beyond, and there was more than.
Well, Zay, the only thing I can respond to that is I think you did a great job, and I think that, you know, just like in any industry, showing up is 80% or more of you know, getting started, and you showed up, and I think you did great, and I hope you keep, between now and when school starts at the end of August, you keep tinkering and trying and seeing what works and referencing your favorite movies to see what maybe they did there with color. Color is really just an exciting thing, and it's a pretty it's a long rabbit hole once you start your way down it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And let's check out some of these comments. So thank you, Ethan, for your comment. I believe that Zay's film is indeed quite atmospheric. So thank you for that. But this is a really interesting comment that reminds him of a little talked about thriller called Joyride. Are you familiar with this film?
I am familiar with that film, and when I saw that comment pop up, I was like, that I didn't even notice that myself. That could have been floating around in my subconscious. What I was really thinking of as well when doing this film, I was going to say, was there was a TV movie that Steven Spielberg did in the 80s. I can't remember the name of that. It was about some truckers, Duel. And then there was another movie called Hitcher, about a hitchhiker in Texas. Both, you should check those out. Those are very good uses of color and very interesting car uses.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Amanda says, in watching this clip, it definitely reminds me of clips that one would see in a horror film, the darkness, the car driving fast, etc. So that's good. Thank you, Amanda. Definitely seeing those elements in your film. So thank you so much for the thought behind it and thinking of not just color, but genre and atmosphere and, you know, your angles, the movement. So there was definitely a lot to take in. So appreciate it.
You know, Brent, that comment, there's something I was thinking, I'll say it now. I feel like there's a whole project or an assignment in just taking that footage or pieces from that clip that Zay shot, doing a sound design and then a color treatment, and then just inserting a passenger's face, which could be shot in anyone's car at home or in your garage, and just cutting back and forth. I feel like there's an interesting film project in there that we could definitely be executed during distance learning.
Absolutely, and I will also say, sort of bringing Griffin back in too, his clip with just the character writing to try and create a different mood based in color, because right now I think we talked about this in class, that looked like, oh, maybe she's looking at the numbers because her business is going under. Well, that was our interpretation, a lot of that based on the color. What happens then if we made that bright, shiny, happy? Now all of a sudden, does that change our perception of what she's doing?
Yep, absolutely. Very cool, guys.
So there's a new comment from Ryan Kuritomi, who's actually our production director at the Media Arts Center. Nice work, and coming to learn something new in post-production, especially something like color grading that can be complex. And absolutely, it's very complex. But I think there's also a simplicity in it. Like once you have a unified vision, like, you know, a concept, a tone, a temperature, or something like that, and then you just kind of like carry that forward. I think that can be a nice way to unify your whole film, right? But we do have another comment coming in, so let's look at that. So Jose Juan, I'm so sorry. What was the hardest thing of color correcting a scene in the dark? Well, that's an interesting question. What do you think, Zig?
This is nice. Okay. So, I wouldn't say it was really that hard per se, but then again, I'm very bad at color correcting. So keep that in mind. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So, I would say though, from my very limited skill set and experience, it was somewhat easier than color correcting a scene in light almost, because I didn't have to deal with like streaks of sunlight coming in, or I didn't have to block off windows of the car in sections. I would say the hardest part was maybe trying to keep just the right saturation on each one of the lights, because there are certain moments where I do want like certain signs or certain colors on other cars to really blare out at you. And then there are other moments where I want them to be softer and I want the interior of the car to be more noticeable.
Nice. Well,
Hey, let me jump on and do a follow-up question on that.
Go ahead.
Because one of the challenges with doing dark scenes often is a lot of cameras, once you start shooting in the dark, get really noisy, and there's a lot of kind of garbage in the image. So let me ask Griffin and Zay, what cameras did you shoot on? I know we don't like to talk a lot about equipment because equipment is, you can do it only sort of matters, but I'm curious, what did you acquire the footage originally on? So maybe start with Zay, since we're talking about shooting in the dark. What did you shoot on?
Okay, so generally, this was just kind of a visual note, what I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
So generally, when I take just little visual notes like this, I just use my iPhone. It's the fastest thing I can pull out of my pocket and point at whatever's going on over there.
Yep, I was pretty sure that was the answer. That's why I wanted to ask that. And then Griffin, what did you shoot on?
I shot on a pretty expensive camera. Like I recently bought a Blackmagic 4K, and that's what I shot on.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to ask that question, because I knew we sort of had two extremes here, and one of the things that I like to tell students a lot is that equipment matters a little bit. But really, our job as artists is to understand the benefits and the limitations of our equipment and to work within those. And I think both of you guys did a really excellent job of taking the equipment that you had available and working within the limitations of those equipment. That's for you, Zay, the iPhone, one of the things it does really well is it sees in the dark. And so your footage is very, very clean, even though it's dark. And then Griffin, for you, you had a camera that has a lot of dynamic range, and you've got that window behind your, I'll say your actress, it was your mom, right?
Yeah.
So you had that bright, you had that really bright window, and yet her face was still properly exposed, and so you worked really well within the abilities of your camera as well. And I like that we have two samples here that are very different starting points, and you were both able to achieve something interesting and really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.
If I may give one last thought, I
think
with that, when we're talking about equipment, I think Griffin's was very good, and his clips were very good for what he was trying to accomplish. So I think it's really pick your weapons.
Yeah.
So it was just the closest thing I had on me, but also when I was trying to do it in this very, like almost primitive 1980s TV movie style, it's good to have the smaller portrait frame.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's a saying that the best camera is the one you have with you.
Yeah.
So whenever that's So whatever camera you have with you, that's the best one.
Yep. And Zay, I'm going to say one last thing because you've said a couple times you're bad at post-production or bad at color. You know what? Your vision is strong, and I would choose to be a person with a strong vision that can learn the buttons because the buttons are very, very teachable. It's very difficult to teach vision. And I'd say both Griffin and Zay have vision, and it was clear in the way you communicated yourselves today. So, Zay, we'll find those buttons, and I'll make sure you push them, and we'll bring Brent back to test you. How about that?
Yeah.
You'll get this.
Yeah, and I'm definitely excited to see what both of you have to do too. Griffin, the fact that you took what was around you and made something that looks like a movie. I'm really impressed. So I'm definitely excited to see what both of you continue to do and continue to learn.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you have your mom on there too. She's beautiful. So good job, you guys. So just hang out. I'm going to send you backstage. And so now we're going to shift a little bit to work with, to look at what our other student did. So we have another student that was working in this color correction class. His name's Brody, but he was not able to join us live today in person. But we do have some of the work that he did. So let's check out what he did. And he used the footage that is stock footage. Well, not really stock footage, but it's a footage that you guys had from another film, right? Do you want to say anything about that, Tom?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier in the week, we kind of kicked things off, laying some foundations. And because for some of the students, it was their first time working in the color room or color suite of the editing software, the idea was to limit when Brent and I kind of conceived this, to limit the variables, or at least kind of give, be aware of the challenges that they might face or come across when working with the footage. So we gave them a set of files from a scene in a film. I think that was from 2017 that Brent and I worked on together. And it's a great scene. It's a short, represented between 3 edit points, 2 different camera angles, and it had some challenges and some great learning opportunities along the way. Brent, you want to mention anything about how we prepared that?
Sure. Yeah. So this is from a short film that Tom and I worked on together, and it's we picked this scene in particular because it had some real world challenges that were not outrageously difficult, that would allow even people who were just sort of learning to have a moderate level of success. And then if they wanted to go deeper, they could really make the footage sing and look incredible. So yeah, that's where we started from, and yeah, I think you can show it from here.
All right, let's check it out.
How you doing? You hungry? I can get you something.
I want to see my dad.
Well, maybe later, kid. Sorry we had to do this. Are those too tight?
Doesn't matter anyways, I can't even feel my fingers.
Hey, it's okay, I'm not gonna hurt you.
So you can kind of see how just by removing that color treatment, you really get a sense of how much that changes the scene. What you're seeing now is essentially more or less what was coming off the camera, and now he's bringing back the color using a crop filter.
I'm just doing what I was told to do, all right? All of this sucks, man.
I know what you mean. I'm always being told what to do too.
Yeah. So, a lot of interesting stuff. So he showed us what it looked like before the color correction, and then he brought in the color correction. So with the color, it's supposed to be a little cooler. And he brought up the contrast. You guys talked a lot about that. So is there anything you guys want to say, or should we, so we have another video clip of Brody talking about his process and what he learned.
Yeah, let's. I'd love to hear from Brody.
All right, let's check it out.
Hey everybody, my name is Brody. I'm 15. I'm a student at SCPA as a film major, and I learned a lot during this class. And it was a really fun experience for me. I learned about the difference between color correction and color grading. I learned like what color can do to a scene and how it affects the audience's emotion and the overall tone of the scene. I really learned a lot, and I have so many more tools now than I did at the beginning, and I totally have a whole new look on how to color grade my work now and my work in the future, and that's really good, and it's really thanks to this class. I appreciate everything I learned, and I hope you see the difference between what I started with and what I know now.
All right. Well, do you guys have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I know Brody's part of the Teen Producers Project, the 10-week program, summer program, and he's got he had told me earlier his rationale for enrolling in the workshop was to be able to apply the color correction and grading process to that film. So I wish he was here today to elaborate a little bit more, but I know that, you know, the production process, you know, color typically comes after we're done with editorial. And I just know from talking to him that he was really excited about adding that to his final product.
Yeah, he was actually, definitely very excited about all the changes and learning, really understanding the differences between color grading and color correction. Brent, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
So the thing that I'll say is sort of about the class overall in general. I was super excited to be a part of this because I sort of mentioned in my bio up top that I really came to understanding color grading pretty late in my career. It is not something I started with, and it would have it would have made me a better artist faster had I had this as part of my education. So what I like doing is I really enjoy seeing the students so early in their careers paying attention to this kind of stuff and thinking about it and taking the time to actually learn about it. And I think that's super exciting, and I cannot wait to see what all these guys do as they advance in their careers. That's
excellent. Yes, I wish I had this information earlier in my career as well, so I can relate. So before we bring everybody back and just kind of say our final goodbyes, Brad, I don't know if we're willing to share with us a little bit about your work and what you do and your company, because I know you specialize in post-production.
Sure, absolutely. No, thank you. Yeah, so my company is called One Post, and it is, I am primarily, well, I'm exclusively a post-production house. I do a little bit of production work, but I find that is just not where my passion lies. And yeah, I do editorial and color correction. It's really sort of an interesting time now with COVID, and I'm learning all sorts of new ways to work remotely with people. And but yeah, my job is to take what people give me and make it as beautiful and interesting as possible. I work with corporate clients and filmmakers and musicians. And yeah, I handle everything that happens after the cameras stop rolling. and I love it. I wouldn't do anything else right now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Really love the work that you do. But you know what? Let me bring everybody back, and let's see. I have one more question for everybody. So Zay, here you go, and Griffin. So welcome back, you guys. So I have one more question for everybody, and I would just love to get everybody's final word on any film recommendations for our audience that maybe show how color can really develop a story, develop a character, and give us a pathos to work in. What do you recommend for our audience? And I'll start with Tom, and then we can go to Brent, and then Griffin and Zay.
I'm now unmuted. Sorry, I had a weed whacker in the background. That happens sometimes. So specific films. I mean, gosh, I hope we have a mature audience. I've always been a fan of Kill Bill. Has excellent use of color in there. A lot of characters. You have, gosh, what is it? In Godfather, they have a really interesting use of color. The use of orange. Orange represents death, which is not typically what you associate orange with. Generally speaking, you can look at, my director brain's failing me, Moonrise Kingdom. Who did that?
Wes Anderson, I think.
Wes Anderson, yeah. Any Wes Anderson film has a fantastic color palette associated with it. And there's volumes of internet articles on Wes Anderson and what he's done with in Grand Budapest or Moonrise Kingdom. So definitely recommend checking out any of his work. But yeah, color can represent, the door handle in Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis. It was a red door handle. I won't spoil it. No spoilers. But you can bring significance to an item, to a character, a space. It's fun. Color is fun.
It is. Don't tell anybody about the blue pill.
Well, so Natalia, you just jumped on the one that I was going to say, and this one is a little bit obvious, and it has become a little bit cliched. But I like to use it as an example, especially to an audience that maybe doesn't have an education, because it is, once you pay attention to it, it is very obvious, and that is The Matrix. And the thing that I point out in The Matrix is when you are in the world of The Matrix, everything is green. And for the entire first 30, 45 minutes of the film, you are in this green world, and it is to the point where you don't even notice it. It is something that you consciously don't even notice. And you, as an audience member, are like the people in the film. You do not realize you're in the world of The Matrix. And then Neo pops out of that goo. He opens his eyes inside the pod for the first time. And the very first thing you see is pink and red. And you go from this green world, bam, slammed into the real world, the messy, red, warm, pink, real world. And I literally stood up in the theater when that happened, and I went, it was green. And my girlfriend at the time was like, what the hell are you talking about? Sit down. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It was green. And she's like, yeah, shut up and watch the movie. So that's the one I really like to point out to people, because even if you are not educated, it is not subtle, but it is something that was so perfect in the world of the film. So there's my example, the first Matrix movie.
That's awesome. Griffin.
There's a fun character Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I don't know about one that really develops character, but I think one of the most beautiful films of all time, and one that I love the way it uses color, is Blade Runner 2049.
Oh.
I was going to say, you've got a poster behind you of one that does color really well.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I just think that's super beautiful.
Absolutely. Zay, what would you recommend?
Okay, so like Brent, the Wachowski sisters, like they're amazing. Like Mr. Antle, oh my God, Tarantino's use of color is superb, especially in the Kill Bills. But even if you look back at things like Pulp Fiction or the opening of Jackie Brown, definitely those are things to look back on. And you have to keep in mind, especially when watching those, that he had no formal education. So if you look at that, you can realize color. And then another one who I really love his work, and this is a little bit more wacky, but I wouldn't necessarily call it obscure. David Lynch, beautiful use of color. If you're looking
Yes.
for a just kind of out there psychedelic movie, David Lynch, beautiful use of color, great thrillers. Jesus, I don't even know how to classify them. And then one of my all-time favorites, like one of the holy trinity of filmmakers, Guillermo del Toro, is amazing. Y'all,
Good
like,
call.
Yeah.
you have to watch a Del Toro movie because I mean he doesn't really like use it in like different ways like Lynch and Tarantino and maybe the Wachowskis do, but he uses it in such a way where it's just so beautiful and it captures your eyes whenever you see anything playing out on screen. And he really likes to combine color with shape, which I find very interesting. So often he'll go into like fantastical worlds, like The Matrix. And so a great version of this is like Pan's Labyrinth, as part of his Spanish trilogy, right? So if you're looking, whenever Ophelia has crossed or is interacting with a magical creature, it's always in. He always goes to his color schemes very specifically. He says that's one of the first things he looks at. But it's always very round and very green and blue. It's very nature colored. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of red. But then, if you go into the real world, or what is presumably the real world, it's very gray. It's very square. They'll often use that to represent the fascist regime in Spain. They're just beautiful films. But yeah, those are definitely like, I don't even know how many I named, like 3, 4. Those are like my top 3 or 4.
You call out Pan's Labyrinth, which is an amazing movie, very hard to watch. That's a tough watch.
It is a tough one.
Yeah,
But it's interesting that you mentioned that, Zay, because I think at the very beginning, when Tom and I started just having a initial conversation, well, I don't ever remember if I talked to both of you guys or what, but just the way that different cultures use color was one of the things that was in the back of my mind as you guys were evolving through this workshop and thinking, like Guillermo del Toro, he uses color in a certain way, and people here in the United States use color in a slightly different way, but then there's films like Godfather and other films that just kind of create their own color world, and it's just completely doesn't matter which, it kind of creates its own little culture. But then you have films that come from East Asian countries or Middle Eastern countries, and their whole notion of color is different. So I just really enjoyed the conversation and having you guys here on the stream for this showcase and this live Q&A. And thank you guys for the wonderful conversation. And thank you for everyone who was watching, for your support and for your time and for your eyes and ears. I can't wait to see what Griffin, Zay, and Brody create in terms of filmmaking. And thank you, Brent and Tom, for being such wonderful mentors and guides, and for being available to go on this wonderful adventure. So we do have one more workshop that's coming up in 2 weeks, one more advanced workshop, and that's going to be on creating online portfolios. And so I'll be teaching that, and I'll be drawing from support of these wonderful people and all the people that in the field that I've been able to contact. And it's just going to be about making sure that your work gets out there and how to shape it for a university program or how to shape it for, say, a professional gig. So that'll be 2 weeks from now, and those will be posted on our Digital Gym website, digitalgym.org. So thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
See you guys. Thank you, Natalia. See you guys. Great
Bye.
work. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. All right.